Hey everyone, welcome to the Happily Ever After 40 podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Johnson, and today we have Regina joining us. Regina is going to tell us a little bit about her personal history as far as marriage, dating, children, relationships. And then we're going to shift over to her current business, which is leadership and business coaching, which she started doing after the age of 40. So I was going to talk about the differences in dating before 40 and after 40, which we all know was totally different. So, Regina, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, T. Michelle, for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here this morning. Um,
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Loving it. So, like T. Michelle said, I'm Regenia. It's a pleasure to be here. A little bit, I guess, about me. I was married. I married very young. So I married at about the age of 17. Was married for 20 years. Out of that great marriage, I have three beautiful daughters who are now all grown, and eventually divorced in my mid 30s. So now I'm single and dating in my 40s. One of the things that I guess learned over time is that we have to be open minded. In your 20s, you're building and you're trying to create a life. And as you start to transition in life, because throughout all this time, you're working, you're developing a career, you may be going to school, you may be working, you may be starting business, just really all depends, on you. Well, as you transition into your 40s, you're not building like you would have been in your 20s. Instead, you transition to merging. So in your 40s, you already have an established lifestyle, a career and things that you like to do, hobbies. And so does that other person. So you start to transition trying to find someone that you're going to pair with whose hobbies and interests are very similar to yours versus building and collaborating together.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So you said you got married at 17,
I did.
and you were in a marriage for 20 years, which is a long time, even getting married at 17. So what was it? You said you had a good marriage, and had three children. What was it that ended the relationship in a divorce?
So it was things that kind of built over time. I loved my husband and my husband loved me, and we aren't the hate each other kind of divorce situation. We found that we wanted different things later in life. I think we married really young, so we found that we wanted different things later in life, and managing certain things became very frustrating. Communication in a relationship is very important, regardless of the type of relationship, whether it's personal or professional. That communication is really important. And even in a marriage, in the household, when you're together, you would say, hey, we communicate all the time. But sometimes people don't think they communicate as well. Sometimes people think they communicate better than they actually communicate, and some people will hear you, but they're really not hearing you. They're really not listening. So, finances tie into things a lot of times, and some of that with us, I think what happens is we take on the role. I know for me as a woman, in a marriage or in a relationship or in a situation ship, whatever you want to call it, in my marriage, what I did is if there was something that was happening, I felt like together we could overcome the world, right? So say my husband couldn't work because maybe he got sick or something happened, and maybe his job didn't pay him what, he felt like it needed to be paid to pretty much help us make it, as a family, because I mean, we had three children. So what I would then do is if he couldn't get the second job, I get the second job, because ultimately it was like, as a team, we had to hold it down. We had responsibilities, we had things we had to take care of. So there were times that he couldn't work, but I could. So I did, so I took on those extra roles and that extra time, and I went out and I got the second job. I worked and created my own businesses, because throughout the process, I had multiple businesses of my own, because I was determined that we had three kids and there wasn't going to be anything that they were going to ever go without, because I knew what it was like to grow up poor. In essence, he was there and supported and, was really great as a dad. I found at times when there were times that he should have stepped up and helped when he could, that I think he kind of got a little comfortable. So instead of joining back in to help fix the situation, he just continued to let me fix the situation. And
Mhm.
in turn, I think I got frustrated, and I started to feel undervalued and, you know, all of those kind of feelings. And while I communicated and he would listen, but he would hear me, but he wasn't really listening. So I think ultimately, while I know he loved me, I think he was comfortable and I didn't know how to step back. So everyone in a relationship has their role. And if you take all the responsibilities and you do them all, and the other person isn't doing them, and they see that you got it, then they may not step up as much. Versus if you take a step back and they see you need the help more so than just trying to be that extra strong person, they may then step up. But I continue to be ready, and running, you know, while sometimes he could help and he didn't. Sometimes he couldn't help and he really couldn't, you know, and I was just determined to make it work at all. And in the process of all of that, I just really made myself extra frustrated. Um, and we're still friends. We still talk, but it was definitely interesting. I just got to a point, I think, where I really wanted to progress in my career. I really wanted to go out and really get more in life. I really wanted to give my kids more opportunity than where we were and what we were doing. We moved to, I'm a little bit more flexible when it comes down to being open to moving into changing and to being adventurous and going out and exploring. And his personality was the total opposite. So when it came down to where we lived in our marriage, we lived in a town that he was from. So when it came time for me to move and transition in my career, he was supposed to move too. And we actually had the communication piece. Hey, I'm being offered this promotion. They're being there. We're going to do this. These are the, you know, this is what the money is going to look like. This is what we need to do. You know, how do you feel about that? And his comment was to me was, I will follow you anywhere you go. Okay, so here I am preparing the transition. And then when it gets down time to move, he couldn't move out of his comfort zone from where he
Wow.
was from. So essentially, I moved myself, I moved my kids, and then it became so, you know, now you had to have a job to move where I'm moving to, you know, what's happening here, you know. So but a lot kind of transpired. He kind of blamed me for him not have a job in the area, but the role that I took on in my new role, I had added responsibility. So there were things that I didn't have time to do. I didn't have time to apply for jobs for him when that was something he
Right.
should have been doing. And that's kind of what his expectation was. They took you, they should have took me too. But that's not how it worked. You know, so there were other mitigating factors that would have prevented him from being able to work where I worked, even though we worked for the same company. So there was some different things that kind of, you know, mitigated the reason why he couldn't go to the exact place. But there were other jobs surrounding us that he could have gone to should he have taken the opportunity and really applied. He says that he did. I can't say that he didn't. I just know that eventually the move never happened for him, but it continued, you know, for me. And I don't regret the move. It was one of the greatest career decisions that I made that kind of led to my next levels of promotion in that company. So I don't regret making the move at all. And throughout the process is that, you know, it was just really interesting. So we continued to try to do the long distance thing for a while. And eventually it became more frustrating than it did beneficial. So
Now, how long
um,
did you do the long distance portion of the marriage?
for about 2 years.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, for about 2 years.
Yeah, that's hard. So I'm going to go back a little bit because you spoke of is a lot of times women, and I see it a lot, like professional women, successful Black women in particular. They become very successful and then they end up meeting men who may not be on the same level financially or career wise. And they end up taking a lot of the financial responsibilities in the home. And as you said, a lot of men or some men get comfortable in that and they're like, okay, well, you know, almost like, well, you don't need me to take care of anything because you have it. Right. So, and you know, as women, I'm not sure it can go both ways. You get very, very frustrated. I was in the same situation. A lot of people know my story. I was in a 10-year relationship pretty much, and I pretty much, you know, took care of all the bills. You know, I'm an attorney, so I was doing well at the time. But yeah, it becomes very, very frustrating. You know, you have these talks, these communications So you're thinking you're communicating. Now I don't know. Sometimes it could come off a little harsh, or I don't know if that's it or not. I don't remember that part, but I remember there were countless conversations and nothing happened. And so then you feel taken advantage of, you feel used and all that, and it's not a healthy relationship at the end of the day. So finances are huge, and those things definitely have to be addressed. And however it's gonna, whatever looks good for you, and your partner, it needs to come together. It just can't be one sided. So okay, so you divorced in your 30s, with the mid 30s, late 30s.
I think I was about 35.
Okay. Um, how did you feel about that transition? You're married for 20 years. You pretty much, as an adult, you were married. Was there anything that was fearful on your end when you were leaving your marriage, as far as being alone or having to start all over? Did those thoughts enter your head, or were you just kind of like, this is not what I want? I need something different for me.
So I was at a point of frustration that I just wanted peace. I wanted peace. I wanted no frustration. I just, it was like I was just tired. I was exhausted. Um, so I really didn't want the divorce, but I almost felt like I had to, or I was going to end up in ruin in some form or another. Um, Again, I love I love my husband very much, but I felt like we had really, really grown apart, and I was more frustrated in the marriage than I was happy. And the communications, they were not heard. They were not heard. So it was time to do something. It was time to do something different. Um, I didn't really have a fear, I guess, because I'm kind of adventurous. There's a million and one guys out there. We're all beautiful women, and there's always somebody for everyone. The frustrating part, I think, for me would have been just the whole starting over, and the comfort. And that's what I've had to transition, the comfort of having someone right there by your side, even with all the frustration. When you're single, that other side of the bed gets cold.
Right.
When you're single, the other side of the bed gets cold. You don't have that person to bounce those ideas off of. The extra restraint that kind of helped you sometimes just bouncing ideas and sense making, I guess you could call it, because I got to sit down and have conversations about decisions that I want to make, because we collaborate together. Ideally on just about everything. There are a few things that we didn't, but majority of the time we would sit down and have a conversation. I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? What do you think, the goods and the bads? And as a single person, you don't have that extra person other than some girlfriends, that you can call. And I have friends that I can call, as well. But it's different in a relationship when you're looking at your finances together, when you're looking at everything, every decision you make when you're in a relationship impacts that other person in some form or another. And sometimes even after the relationship has dissolved, depending on how those things dissolve, things you do can still create impact in that other person's life. So I didn't have the fear necessarily. I just really wanted I guess, the relief, the stress relief. And it almost felt like when I divorced, that a burden was lifted. I don't know if that, if you kind of understand, because it really felt like it was a decision I probably should have made. And I don't look at the situation when people talk about, well, the woman makes more money or the man makes more money, because that can happen. I think what plays a bigger part in that is, are you willing to accept there's give and take, right? So in everybody that you decide that you're going to date or you're going to be in a relationship with, there's no such thing as that perfect person. There's going to be things about that person you like, and there's going to be things about that person that you don't like. And what you have to figure out is which is going to be, which is going to give you the greater level of happiness. For me, what a man makes in money it's not a big thing for me. You may not make 100,000 a year, but I mean, are you cutting the grass? Are you helping me in my business? Are you doing other things that could potentially make up for what you may not bring in dollar wise? You know, are you helping me generate ideas? Are you comforting? Are you consoling? Are you full of integrity? And I don't have to worry when I'm traveling for work. Do you have the integrity that I know within me that you're going to do the right things, whether I'm there or not? Are you supportive? Are you caring? So money in itself, isn't a big factor for me. No, I don't necessarily want a guy who doesn't want to work and, who's only making a minimum wage because he wasn't motivated to do anything else. If he's driven, because people have bad breaks in life, you know, I could have the greatest job and tomorrow that job is gone. I mean, I've met I do volunteer work. So I've met people that were top CEOs trying to take care of their kids, job shuts down and boom, now they have no source of income and now they've got to start over. So I don't usually use money as a determining factor as much as I do drive and determination and what steps are you making? What kind of decisions do you make? I look at things like that more so than I do a dollar amount.
Mhm. That's good. So, okay, you are into coaching now. You definitely have the business background, but you transitioned to relationship coaching as well as leadership coaching. So, tell us about that transition when you transitioned to both of those fields and how and why.
So I love people. And I hired a coach myself. I was going through some transitions in my career, and I felt like I needed an outside perspective. I was kind of faced with some adversities, and I started to look at myself. Is it something I could be doing? Is it something I need to do better? What is it about me that I need to work on? So I hired a coach, and going through the coaching process with the coach, and the way that she helped me, I go, man, I would love to help someone else the same way that this young lady has helped me. And then I started to explore the coaching, and I started to realize I've actually been doing coaching all along in my career. I just it just didn't have the formal title of coaching per se. And then the more I started to explore coaching, I found that there were so many different niches.
Mhm.
So as I explored the niches, I started getting my certification as a relationship coach. And that relationship coach training in itself helped me understand so much about what even I had gone through in a relationship and how men and women think and the feminine and masculine energies, and the communication styles. It was just really eye opening for me. And I wanted to really be able to help someone else that same way. What I found is because of my business background, because I'm I guess, more of a business minded person, I found that business coaching was a better fit for me. And I managed to tie the two together. Sometimes people don't realize that relationships cross spectrums. It's not just about the romantic relationship, but it's also about the business relationship, the relationship with the customer, the relationship with the employee, the relationship with the community that can make or break a company. So as I started to notice all of that with some of the things that I did, I said, let me transition the knowledge that I have from relationship coaching and business into my executive leadership and consulting coaching business so that I can help businesses, small businesses, entrepreneurs, and leaders.
Okay. So, what do your typical clients look like? Men, women, income wise, relationship wise? What do the typical people look like as far as your clients?
So for me, I service both men and women. I find more women resonate to me, but I don't turn away men as business, as clients, because I think I can serve everyone. Um, I'm going to say at least mid to senior level leadership and leadership teams.
Mhm.
I don't really get into their income because I let you determine, what you decide you want to spend. I have my pricing model, and if you decide you want to buy into the program, you know your finances better than I do. So I don't usually ask them, about their salaries because some people it's confidential, they don't want to disclose. And I don't want to make myself turn someone away because I feel like they can't pay when they feel like they can. So I really don't look at their salary and what the kind of money they make. It's just like going and buying a car. You go and you buy a car. If you can make the payments, you make the payments and you buy your car, right?
Hmm. Okay. So, do you have different levels? Uh
I'm
oh.
sorry. They've got to be willing to be coached. They've got to be open to feedback and really taking action and making the changes. I'm a very direct, very straightforward person. So I'm not the soft and fuzzy. It's just like I don't do well with a soft and fuzzy coach. I need someone that's very confident, that's very direct. And I have that same approach. It's just my personality style.
Mhm.
Um, so you have to be, you want to definitely be, I can coach you into being assertive and building your confidence. But in essence, you're going to have to take the action needed. You've got to be willing to put the work in. You've got to be able to take the hard truth sometimes and really willing to dive in and do the work.
Okay, so do you have different levels of coaching programs or services that you offer, or is it just kind of one program that you have, or are there different levels in your coaching?
I do. I have a 90-day program, I have a 6-month program, and I have a 1-year program. The 1-year program is geared towards small businesses because it also includes a what I call an annual assessment. After we've gone through and we've gone through the strategy created for your business specifically, we like to evaluate at the very end what you implemented, what's worked really well, and what other changes do we need to make to continue. Because essentially, if you go through the program and there's no measurement, then how do you know that the program actually worked?
Right. Okay. So we're going to go back a little bit. We're going to shift back to personal. I know when we first touched base, um, uh, you're looking for guests for the podcast, and you mentioned that we're going to go back to dating, dating over 40. And you mentioned that because you're in LA now, that dating in LA is different than maybe in the South in the States. So just tell us a little bit your perspective about dating over 40 and your experiences and the coast of dating, what you experience.
Oh yes, dating is definitely interesting. So interesting in itself, and then you add the difference in the variations of personalities. So what I found, again, I think I mentioned earlier, it's different when it comes down to developing and dating in your 20s. In your 40s, you're trying to merge a already established mindset and lifestyles and careers and schedules and all of those great things. On the East Coast, what I noticed in dating in the East Coast is men are more I can't think of the right word right now, but they're more hospitable. You
Hmm.
still get the door opening for some guys. They'll get out and they'll pump your gas for you. They seem to really kind of warm you up in a sense that they value your time and they value being with you. They're treating you for dinner. You are a value for them. As I transitioned and I started dating on the West Coast, one of the things that I noticed is you just seem like an option for them.
Hmm.
You seem like an option for them. There was more preference to size. I don't know if it's just because I'm in the LA area, so there are definitely, everybody has their thing. Some guys like plus size girls, some guys prefer the skinnier girl, but I noticed that in the South, the guys really love the big girls. You don't hear a whole lot about they just want a skinny chick. Whereas out here, you have guys that literally they want you to be, a size 3. You have to look this way, you have to look that way, kind of the model type. You can find the guys that like plus size. I found plenty of guys that like plus size girls too. But you hear more about and you see more about on the profiles, like dating profiles and stuff like that, that they want you fit and they want you trim and they want this and they want that. And it's like, okay. And then the attitude towards women seems to be really, really different. You know, the respect thing on the East Coast was really big. But here it's like you're an option. And I've even had conversations where guys, I guess some of this comes out of, I think some of this comes out of a certain level of brokenness, like a broken relationship in their past or some type of situation that they've been involved in that just kind of created like a negative mindset for them. I was on talking to a guy one time, and this is just him getting to know me to determine whether we were going to even go out on a date. And it starts off talking about, okay, so what kind of work do you do? Where are you from? Then all of a sudden I get this, so who do you think is going to pay for all the meals? And I was like, I haven't even
Wow.
decided I wanted to go out on a date with you yet. Like, really? So then he gets into this whole spiel and the mindset just goes left. Then he goes into this whole thing of, well, there's women out here to date just because of for a free meal. And I go, if you feel that way about this conversation, maybe we're talking to the wrong people. I say, if you're simply wondering whether or not you're going to have to pay for a meal for me is going to determine whether or not we go on a date, maybe we don't need to go on a date. I said, this is what I think you might want to focus on is take a minute, focus on yourself and think about the type of women that you're taking out on dates. Because if all the women that you pick up seem to have some negative story behind it, whether it's they wanted you to ride in their car that was full of smoke because they were smoking cigarettes, or they wanted you to pay for the meal and then they didn't call you back and they ghosted you. Or I said, maybe your picker is broken. Maybe you need to have a little process prior to going out, these young ladies that you're picking. Because, if and then as a guy, there is a cordial way to vet out your dates before you even go and pay. But if you don't even know how to communicate that piece, then we really shouldn't even be having this conversation. Because a better way to really come at that approach, because you really don't even know what type of woman I am at this point. And trust and believe, I can buy my own meals.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right. So okay, so at the end of the
So
day,
I
did you
go,
end up
what
going
you
out?
can do, if
Go
your
ahead.
concern is paying for a meal, then what you can do is say, hey, there's a lot of parks. How would you like to take a walk in the park so we can meet and talk? That way the park is free and you don't come off as cheap and disgruntled because you bought somebody else a meal.
Okay, so what happened? Did you go out with him?
Oh,
That particular person?
absolutely not.
Oh, okay. Because a
Absolutely
lot
not.
of them they'll go through all that and they were like, "Yeah, I still went
No.
out." It didn't work, but we still went
Right. I
out.
mean, that's like a immediate red flag right there.
Right, right. And that's a great way to handle it. So, okay, so I know you mentioned you were going from like West Coast to East Coast, and then you also mentioned in the South. So to me, dating is different up north, which I'm originally from Connecticut, but I'm in Atlanta. And so I've done like, East Coast both ways, but up north and then down south, which is different to me. So do you specifically see a difference in like the South, men in the South? And because I know you're from the DMV area, um, the Washington, Virginia, Maryland area.
Right.
Um, so I consider that okay, I consider Virginia down south and anything above Virginia up north. And actually somewhere in between, some parts of Virginia are up north to me as well. So, but did you see a difference? Have you experienced a difference between southern men on the East Coast and northern men on the East Coast as far as
I'm going to
dating?
have to say that my experience is probably more so Southern, because while I've traveled up and down the entire East Coast, I've done most of my dating either in Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, or Florida. So it was mainly Southern. And it's funny you say that because people in the South say Virginia isn't the South, and people in the North say Virginia is the South.
That's funny. I didn't know that.
But I've lived in both North Carolina. I mean, lived in both Virginia and Georgia, and
Mhm.
then I moved out here to California. Um, so I would mainly say the Southeast, more so than the Northeast, I guess. Because I've never dated anybody from the North,
Okay.
not the Northeast anyway.
Right. Okay. So in how long have you been in LA?
About 6 years.
6 years. Okay. Have you had a serious relationship since you've been out on the West Coast in LA?
I have,
You have.
I have. What I'm finding, and I had to learn. You talked about women in leadership and Black women in leadership, and the common thread that I kind of hear is that I have a very strong personality, and I do, and some of it comes from the work that I do. So I don't mind saying what's on my mind. I do try. I do try to tone it down to where it's not offensive because of just the audience, but I do find sometimes that can be intimidating, and I'm not sure whether it makes a man feel he's not needed. Because I mean, I'm a big component to say, hey, I definitely want a man in my life, but I don't think guys understand that if you've been single and you've been doing it all for yourself, then you can do it all for yourself. So you have to take an effort to make somebody else feel as though they're needed, because everybody wants to be needed. But they also have to put themselves in the situation to be able to show that if they are needed, they can be depended on.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I don't have time to put things on the back burner just to wait to see if somebody else is going to fix it for me when,
Right.
I can fix it myself,
Mhm.
so or I can call a plumber to fix it. You know what I mean? So I had to really learn how to just kind of, I don't know if you want to call it tone it down a little bit.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. Okay, so nowadays, I know you have break limit coaching. Do you do that full time, or do you also have another job as well? Or is this what you do full time?
My coaching business right now is part-time.
Okay. Okay.
Full-time, full-time, I work as a corporate staff for a company. So I oversee the employee development division for a company.
Okay. So if anyone is watching this, you can see Regenia's links. You can see her website, which is breaklimitscoaching.com. Her IG is at break_limits_coaching, LinkedIn break limits coaching. So if you're listening to that, or you're listening to the podcast, you can get that information as well. Also leave it in the show notes. Are you accepting current clients or new clients right now?
I am. I will have a new session start up in June.
June of 2021.
Yeah,
You say you have a new session. So how many sessions do you have a year?
3.
3. Okay. And is this for the 90 days, 6 month, or year? Or is it for all of them?
It's for all of them.
Okay. All right. Nice. So yeah. So go ahead and visit Regenia and all her or her social media pages. And she will get back to you. Regina, thank you so much for sharing your insight into dating, relationships, and professional coaching as well. And we wish you the best of luck in everything. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Enjoy your day.